Hello everyone, my name is Harley, and today I want to go over some misconceptions about versus in Left 4 Dead. I've been playing Left 4 Dead since the first game on the Xbox 360, and I feel some of the issues people mention are either heavily overstated or completely outdated. It's become common knowledge that versus mode is incredibly toxic, but I'm going to go against the grain and tell you otherwise. Before I can tell you how it isn't toxic, I'm going to go over where the consensus that versus is toxic came from. This line of thinking usually comes from having a bad first experience with versus mode, jumping into a random game, playing as normal, and then getting vote kicked just after being called every slur under the sun. If this sounds familiar, this is what's been parroted for the last 17 years the game has been out. Versus is, admittedly, extremely hard to get into, and the main reason is that it plays drastically different from campaign mode. Campaign teaches you that you get room to breathe, time to scavenge supplies, and there's no real emphasis on clearing your teammates as quick as possible. In versus mode, it's the direct opposite. Versus teaches you that you are nothing without your team, and your team is nothing without you. It teaches you that you don't want to take unnecessary damage if you can help it. It teaches you to efficiently clear pins, and it teaches you to play faster and think ahead. The only knowledge campaign even packs you with is how the core game functions, the map layouts, and how each special infected attack. Other than jumping straight in, there are no ways to prepare you for versus. This is a game issue, and I fully agree that there should be an instance where you can practice and learn completely vanilla how the game mode functions. That being said, there are plenty of open arms via YouTube guides and Steam guides to teach you how to play. Some notable guides are from Zerk4Dead and Jukes McGee, who have both gone over basic versus courtesy and a more stable line to follow that the game itself would never teach you. The versus community does not care if you're new. There are many people that are willing to teach you how to play. That doesn't mean people are going to stand for you seeing a tri-cap on your team and deciding that leaving them is the best course of action. You are still going to get kicked if you abandon your team or if you activate a crescendo event during tank. Versus mode plays drastically different from campaign mode. That's why it's so confusing to see what you did wrong if you got kicked. I will admit that versus mode used to be much more brutal to newer players, and you would get kicked for much less than you do today. With this in mind, I can fully understand why the mode would be labeled as a toxic cesspool, and I would be more inclined to agree. However, I personally feel that this has completely changed in recent years. The more time went on, players have picked up much more knowledge about the game, making it all the more easier to help newer players. 10 years ago, most players had no idea that there was bullet penetration or even headshot multiplayers. It's thanks to notable players such as Noskelch for bringing this to light via his YouTube gameplay, whether this was an intentional side effect or not. It was much harder to carry a game without all the knowledge we have today, making for a much more exclusive play zone. Vote kicks have completely changed. Weirdly enough, they have gone back to being what they were intended for. Vote kicks in versus mode are almost exclusively used to kick cheaters, griefers, or players who haven't grasped core game mechanics yet. You aren't getting kicked just for existing, as many people still mistakenly believe. Even if you're bad at the game, as long as you're trying your best to learn and keep up, people will accept you as part of the team. This doesn't mean you can jump in completely clueless on even the most basic game mechanics, but it allows people who want to learn how to learn how to play. There's always a reason for a vote kick now, and it's not because this player is new, but rather because this player doesn't want to work together. The toxicity is really blown out of proportion in versus. Yeah, there's trash talking, but the worst you will ever see is a racial slur in chat. Nothing that cuts deep, and most players don't dwell on the trash talking that does occur. There is no censorship, yet it's pretty tame compared to what you would expect to see. It's more of a talk shit and take it type community, similar to early 2000s online gaming. I personally find it pretty neat compared to the empty chats of modern games that are fully regulated by AI, which scare players from even communicating in fear of being banned. A lot of people might disagree with me on this, but I find a couple slurs in text chat as a necessary evil to escape from abusive censorship. Regardless, I feel that it could be argued that other Valve games, such as Team Fortress 2 or Counter-Strike, are more toxic than Versus could ever be. In Counter-Strike, for example, you can straight up get banned from the game for up to a week just by being vote kicked enough. You can argue it's an apples to oranges type of thing, but then why doesn't Counter-Strike get the same reputation that Left 4 Dead does? Even if you added some sort of censorship to the game, take a look at something like Dead by Daylight, for example. There are sensors in place, and there even is a report system for toxicity and such, yet it still remains one of the most toxic games on Steam. All that's left of Versus is a legacy that the mode is terrible, toxic, and should be avoided at all costs. It's common to find new players who stumble on the mode who are extremely timid and nervous because they're afraid to get yelled at. This mindset has been pushed around that you have to be a complete god gamer or else you're not allowed in the club. This hurts any new player's expectations, and they end up playing extremely safe instead of testing the limits of what works and what doesn't. This causes them to never learn, and when they do get vote kicked for whatever reason, it will do nothing but strengthen this completely false identity the mode has. When I tried to pick up versus mode seriously in 2016 or so, I fully believed the mode was toxic. I was a noob who didn't look at guides, and I didn't bother trying to really learn. I just got kicked for throwing games, while not even realizing that I was doing so. I continued on to read similar stories of people getting kicked, and it just beat in the idea that the mode was toxic. The simple answer is no, it's not toxic. I just didn't understand the game back then, and I was unintentionally throwing matches. Being much better at the game, I can fully understand this now, and it's a tough pill to swallow for a lot of players. Whether you want to believe it or not, at the end of the day, Versus is a competitive mode. The in-game message for when there's not enough players clearly states this. Versus may be competitive, but it's not balanced in any way. It's more compared to a casual party game, especially since there's no rewards from the mode. So why do some people take it so seriously? To put it simply, it's because the level of strategy and teamwork in Versus can't be found anywhere else. Otherwise, nobody would be playing Versus right now at all. Even players like Decobers, who get on games just to troll, didn't even find the game nearly as toxic as other people made it out to be. You can argue that he was just lucky, but in his videos he had several different lobbies where he's pushing his teammates as hard as he could. He simply said it's not easy for new players, but even he declared the game is not toxic. Regardless, even if you do find toxic players, the block system completely removes the ability for either of you to be in the same lobby, unless it's a community server. I avoided this mode for a long time after my initial 2016 entry, only getting into it again whenever I was playing it on the Xbox 360. It's still active, and I've made plenty of great friends there, as well as rivals. However, I'm not going to sugarcoat Left 4 Dead on Xbox. It is just as bad as you think. Most Xbox players have never gotten good enough to understand what went wrong with their team, and I've been kicked plenty of times due to my teammates not having any awareness and blaming it on others. Xbox Left 4 Dead, though, is a completely different topic, and it's one that I may or may not return to in a future video. Around January 2025, I got my own laptop. Left 4 Dead was the first game I installed, and I was eager to jump into Versus as I'm a much better player than I used to be. I fully understand how the game mode works, and I was curious to see how the Last Stand update changed the mode. Most of the glitches on the maps were patched, most of the new infected ladders added much needed variety, charger brick walling was completely removed, thank God, and the gameplay was much more fluid due to PC having dedicated servers in contrast to Xbox only having local hosts. In my entire time of playing, I've seen maybe 2 unwarranted vote kicks. Every other one was completely justified due to trolling, team killing, rushing, or other factors. Vote kicks were so much less common than I remembered, and it was a much needed change from playing on console where the community truly has never advanced. Depending on the chapter, players mostly have the courtesy to restart the chapter if someone griefs the game, which is another change from Xbox where restart chapter votes were only called if a team was losing. Most players even signify in chat if their team is ready, or to wait for more players, or other things. There is trash talking from time to time, but it's nothing crazy. Nobody demands that you play perfect. I've gotten on and played just as I normally do. I usually play with tier 1s only for as long as I can, and I've had maybe one person get upset about it, and even then he was probably trolling. I can play my way as long as it fits around the team. I made plenty of great friends, and for the most part I enjoy actively playing, even solo with randoms. So all in all, this is why I don't think that Versus is toxic. However, if you're still listening, I have my own issues with Versus that I feel aren't talked about enough. The issue is not a toxic player base that hasn't existed in a decade. The most common issue with Versus are cheaters and griefers. This game is infested with both of them. It's not exclusively a Versus problem, but it is the most common there. You'll oftentimes see players who are blatantly aimbotting, or players who just join the game to immediately kill their teammates or themselves. This is where vote kicks come in. Most players are already on top of it, but if not, then you can just always block the player who tried ruining the match and find a different lobby. There isn't any early quit penalty in this game, so you can immediately hop into a different match. The only thing you take is a loss in your easily privatable or exploitable stats, which nobody on this game cares about anyways. Rage quitting is another issue, which stems from the fact that there is no leave penalty. It's kinda hard to have a complete campaign finished, but most of the time there are players to backfill the ones who leave. This honestly makes for a more interesting experience as you'll have to adapt to those newly joined players. Rage quitting is much more of an issue on console than it is on PC. Another huge issue is the lack of DDoS protection. It's still not fixed, and while it's not happening every single game anymore, it's still very much so a problem. This forces people into hosting local servers, which is an extremely mixed bag and a large portion of players actively try to avoid. Local servers can easily have custom mods and scripts installed, and the host can kick any player via console commands, which can make for a bad experience as there's no vote. The connection on local servers is also hit or miss, and most of the time it's less than ideal. A completely ignored problem is the inclusion of sprays. Sprays allow you to take any image or GIF under 10 frames and post it for every player in the lobby to see. This can be avoided by turning it off in the multiplayer settings, however, if my memory serves right, it's enabled by default. Nobody uses the system in a creative way. You will rarely see anyone use it as a taunt or a graphic showcasing their username. The community as a whole has turned the entire spray system into being complete garbage. Whenever a random player uses their spray in a public lobby, 9 out of 10 times it's porn. Some even have their spray set to gore. Other times, if you're lucky, it's just a bland meme. This is an issue in the entire game and not just versus, but I feel like it's worth taking the time to mention as nobody seems to be against it other than a niche subcategory of players. It's not funny to post someone getting his head blown off, and it's not funny to post porn. The game would be infinitely better if Valve took away the spray system permanently, as it's been made into a complete joke. Well, that's all I wanted to go on about. If you liked the video, leave a like. If you didn't, leave a dislike. If you have any arguments about what I mentioned in the video, I'd love to read them in the comments. As always, thanks for watching, and I'll talk to you some other time.